Hello, I'm David Debato, and this is the No Delusion Zone for Saturday, June 13th, 2026. I call today's podcast MAGA Still Loves Trump. There's been so much written and spoken about on social media and all over the internet about, at least in the United States, about how MAGA, how Trump's core supporters, his base, is turning against him, how all his lies and crimes and just abhorrent, disgusting, traitorous behavior is starting to affect his MAGA base in the checkbook with their salaries, with the price of groceries and gas, and for farmers, the cost of fertilizer, how the economy is basically going down the tubes, and how they didn't expect their anointed prophet, Trump, to do this. Not to mention, of course, the war in Iran. And this was the peace president, the no new wars president. So, as I said, it's been all over the internet and social media about how MAGA is finally turning against Trump, how there are cracks in the MAGA base. And I'm here to tell you that's bullshit. Yeah, I've said it a number of times. I'll say it again. That's BS. Yes, there are some people who voted for Trump who are having second thoughts, buyer's remorse, as it's also known. But from my perspective, from everything I see and read and hear, and from the people I speak to who are still diehard Trump supporters, that support is not fading. If anything, it's more rock solid. They see in the things he says and does more of themselves than he did before. Nothing he's done or said has really changed the majority of the MAGA base's opinions of him. Like I said, if anything, it strengthened it. And I bring this up because it all comes back to podcasts I've done in the past, articles I've written, and that I'm going to write and post again in the future. And that has to do with the stupidity that is a plague here in America. That is just incredible, just horrible. I mean, we have, and I'll throw this up again. I've used this before, but I think it's extremely relevant. Why am I saying this? Because about 54% of American adults, roughly 130 million people, read below a sixth grade level. That means nearly half of Americans cannot work out the correct dose on a children's medicine label, can't read their own pay stub, can't follow the instructions on a consent form before surgery, and can't locate basic information in a short newspaper article. And I guess the basic premise of what I think is wrong with America, why I think America has voted for Trump not once, not twice, why he's still so popular, why MAGA is as strong as before. They keep holding on to that about 33% of the American electorate, at least the adult voters that had voted for Trump. Why does that never go below that? And why is that as strong as ever? In my opinion, and I really believe this, it's because of the poor or broken education system in America. And I've said it a lot, and my colleagues don't like me to use this word, but it's stupidity. They want me to say something like educationally challenged or disadvantaged or whatever. It's stupidity. It's rampant stupidity. We have a pandemic of stupidity in America. We have for quite a while, but it's gotten worse because we have a president who values the poorly educated. Yeah, let me show you that clip. He said this. This was during his first campaign run back in 2016. Very short clip where he professes his love of the poorly educated. Take a listen.
We love Nevada. We love Nevada. Thank you. A couple of months ago, we weren't expected to win this one. You know that, right? We weren't. Of course, if you listen to the pundits, we weren't expected to win too much, and now we're winning the country. And soon the country is going to start winning. We won the evangelicals. We won with young. We won with old. We won with highly educated. We won with poorly educated. I love the poorly educated.
And there you go. He loves the poorly educated. I don't think there was ever an American president. In fact, I know there was never an American president who publicly stated that he likes the poorly educated. Now, nothing against people who, for valid, legitimate reasons, were not able to finish their education. My own parents, well, at least one of my parents, never went beyond the 8th grade. They came from a coal mining family in eastern Pennsylvania. All of my relatives, going back to great grandfathers, were coal miners, and my mother's father was a coal miner. She never made it out of the 8th grade. She had to go to work. So I get that. I do not get where people who do have the opportunity to go past the 8th grade or even past high school, or at least high school, don't. And Donald Trump and his MAGA base today celebrate the poorly educated, as he just said. Being poorly educated, and formal education unto itself does not make one well educated. There are plenty of people. In fact, I just did a podcast about how today and for the last 20 or 30 years, Americans are being admitted into colleges and universities who cannot themselves read at even the 8th grade level. So just having a high school diploma or even graduating from college today does not unto itself mean that you are really educated. It just gives you a diploma. But that's another part of the broken education system in America. My point of today's, or the focus of today's podcast, is that we have a country, a nation from the president on down who openly, publicly celebrates stupidity, being dumb. This is a president who regularly, almost on a daily or weekly basis, either trims down or totally eliminates the budget for scientific research of all kinds, for colleges and universities, for medical research. You know how what an anti-vacciner he is. So we're falling way behind the rest of the world in terms of science and medicine and education. My God, we have a comeback of measles and mumps, two diseases, childhood diseases that were eradicated decades ago. But because of the non-education, non-vaccine president and his criminal cabal, those diseases are making a comeback, as well as many others. Look, with the RFK in charge of Health and Human Services doing away with mandatory vaccines for children, we're going to have a lot of sick and dead children and adults in the next few years and decades because of this. It's going to take us a long time to dig our way out of this. But let me get back to the point of all of this podcast today. And I'm going to read an excerpt from an article that I just read in The Atlantic, and it has to do with MAGA, his core MAGA supporters still supporting Trump, no matter what he's done. And the focus of this article, and I'm going to read an excerpt, is that, the Democrats trying to plead to Trump supporters, to MAGA, about saving democracy. The fact that Trump is destroying democracy, so please help us defend democracy, has pretty much fallen on deaf ears. That's a fact. And my point that I'm going to be making during and after I read this excerpt is that's because they're stupid. They don't even know what democracy is. They don't even know what the word or phrase constitutional republic means. If it doesn't affect them personally, they don't care. And if it does affect them personally, negatively, they will happily, gleefully vote for a fascist, for a dictator, for a convicted felon, Donald Trump. They love him because he acts and speaks the way that they do, crudely, uneducatedly. And, let me just get into the article. And again, it's from The Atlantic, and it's called "The Voters Who Believe That Trump Defends Their Values," with the subtitle, "Why Calls to Save Democracy Didn't Work." And you could read along the first part of it with me. And it opens, "Given President Trump's disregard for longstanding political norms and his efforts to overturn the 2020 election, Many Americans fear that he is hostile to democracy. According to this view, the 49.8% of voters who supported him in 2024 must simply be unaware of the existential threat he poses to our republic. The logic, to Trump's critics, is therefore simple. Once voters fully grasp that democracy is under threat from creeping authoritarianism, then surely they will turn against Trump. One participant, Sarah, a 30-something mother of three in rural Wyoming, grew up poor, the daughter of a single teen mom. From the time she was born, her local church fed her family, cared for her when her mother couldn't be around, and surrounded her with people who treated her with dignity. In 2008, at the age of 18, she strongly considered voting for Barack Obama for president. She appreciated his care for struggling Americans and believed his promises of change. The parents of her boyfriend at the time didn't argue with her. Instead, her future in-laws listened and then asked, "Who brought you out of poverty?" The answer, Sarah realized, was not the federal government, but her church community, a view that she believes put her closer to the priorities and policies of conservatives rather than Democrats. Which brings us to Trump. How can people with such strong attachment to faith and family vote for someone who criticizes religious leaders and defies so many ethical standards? We learned that these voters evaluate Trump not as a model of their values, but as a defender of them. I don't like him as a person, Cindy, a 50-something nurse in South Carolina, told us, but I like him as a president. And I'm sorry, that's a phrase of a true MAGA moron. You're going to vote for somebody for president of the United States of America that you don't even like as a person? How can someone who's not a nice person, in your own opinion, suddenly change and see the light come on when they become president and decide that they're going to protect all the people of the United States, to do the right thing by all 340-some million Americans, with all of its complexity, from national defense to education to the environment and on and on and on? He's not a nice person, in your opinion, but he's going to be a good president, right? Only somebody, I don't care if you're a nurse or if you dig ditches, if you're not able to see through that argument and think critically about what you just said, you're stupid. You're a moron. And therein lies the problem. We have a country full of at least 32% of the voters who can't think critically because of their lack of education, formal education, informal education, or their just inability to process facts and common sense. Can say in one breath, I don't like him as a person, or as a lot of guys say, I wouldn't have a beer with him, but I vote for him as president. I like him as president. I like what he says and how he says it. You know, that really pisses me off because, again, how can you not like someone as a person, but then you think that that person is going to make a good president? A position which is arguably the most powerful in the world, that takes an incredible intellect, something you obviously don't understand, and that he needs to be the president for all of Americans. He is the face of this country, not only to our fellow Americans, but to the rest of the world. That literally, because of our nuclear arsenal, the fate of the world depends on this person who you don't even think is a nice person, but would make a good president. That's because we are inhabited by a nation of morons, people who are functionally illiterate, who 54% of which read at the 6th grade level or below, and 20% of them read at the 5th grade level or below. And if you're MAGA, a Trump supporter watching this, and you still don't get what I'm saying, you've made my case. Only people who can't think critically, who can't tie their shoes, who think that having a raving, lunatic, demented, convicted felon, narcissist, complete lunatic as the president of the United States is a good thing, There are no words, except that that's why America is in the downward doom spiral that we're in, because of you, if you're MAGA and watching this. I don't know where we're going from here, folks. I know that between now and the 4th of July, I'm going to be making a series of podcasts like this, talking about how we got here and why the 250th anniversary of our constitutional republic is a bust this year. A lot of people, millions of Americans like me, are not really going to be celebrating this year. We're going to be mourning our constitutional republic. We're going to be mourning the democracy that we and our ancestors going back 250 years built, and that was destroyed in the last year and a half or so, and starting decades before, but blown apart and absolutely destroyed over the last about 18 months. So that's it for today. I may be back tomorrow with another similar podcast. Like I said, I'm going to be making them about our former constitutional republic every day, if possible, at least during the week between now and the 4th of July. If I don't make one tomorrow, Sunday, I will for sure be back on Monday. So please join me then. If you can, I need all the support I can get, because it takes everyone's help to protect the republic. And I am just one of millions of voices for sure, but I don't have a whole lot of pull here. So if you please hit the like and subscribe button, I'd really, really appreciate it. Again, need all the support that I can get here, as well as the other voices of the opposition like mine on YouTube and other social media. So until I see you next time, you all take care, stay safe, and if you're not MAGA, stay sane.